Okay. Thank you all for joining today, this morning, Saturday morning Bhagavatam discussion. I'll start with the Mangla Charan prayers first. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Shakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sagitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamcha Ye Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanjana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suthe Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyacha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namini Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachata Desadharini Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shlokher Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna again, everyone. Thank you again for joining this morning, taking time on a Saturday morning. I don't feel qualified. I don't have any knowledge to speak on this transcendental book. Literature, great literature. So I seek everyone's blessings that whatever I heard or read about the verse that I'm going to speak, I speak something meaningful. With that, I would like to begin. So the the verse for today's discussion is Canto 1, Chapter 5, verse number 3. We'll start with reciting the verse, and then we will get into the discussion. I will share my screen here. Can you all see my screen okay?
Yes, Mother.
Okay. So usually the morning discussion is usually a lot of shlokas, a lot of philosophy today, but it's not going to be like that. I also want to have some interaction, so there will be some questions also. Just wanted to say that first. So I'll recite the verse. Gijnasitam susampannam apite mahadadputam kritavan bharatam yastvam sarvartha paribrahmitam. Again, one more time. Gijnasitam susampannam apite mahadadputam kritavan bharatam yastvam sarvartha paribrahmitam. I would like to request 2 or 3 devotees to recite the verse for me, please.
Jignasitam susampannam apite mahad adbhutam kritavan bharatam yastvam sarvartha paribrahmitam.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Jignasitam susampannam apite mahad adbhutam kritavan bharatam yastvam sarvartha paribhramitam.
Mataji's. Any Mataji wants to recite? Okay. All right, we'll move on to the word by word translation. Gijnasitam, fully inquired. Susampannam, well versed. Api, in spite of. Te, your. Mahat adbhutam, great and wonderful. Kritavan, prepared. Bharatam, the Mahabharata. Yatvam, what you have done. Sarva artha, including all sequences. Pari brahmitam, elaborately explained. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation: your inquiries were full and your studies were also well fulfilled. And there is no doubt that you have prepared a great and wonderful work, the Mahabharata, which is full of all kinds of Vedic sequences elaborately explained. So I'll read the translation again. Your inquiries were full and your studies were also well fulfilled. And there is no doubt that you have prepared a great and wonderful work, the Mahabharata, which is full of all kinds of Vedic sequences elaborately explained. Purport, it's a very small one. The despondency of Vyasadeva was certainly not due to his lack of sufficient knowledge, because as a student, he had fully inquired about the Vedic literatures, as a result of which the Mahabharata is compiled with the full explanation of the Vedas. I like to begin with the context here. This is a verse, comes in fifth chapter, 3rd verse, and this verse is spoken by Narada Muni to Srila Vyasadeva. So the question here is, in this verse, is Narada Muni complimenting the work of Vyasadeva, the Mahabharata, or critiquing? Anybody want to try it?
Complimenting Mataji.
Complimenting Prabhu, okay. Any other answer other than complimenting the work of Vyasadeva?
I would say not criticizing Mataji. Definitely not criticizing.
Definitely not criticizing. Okay, thank you, Prabhu. So when Ramacharya Prabhu put the roster and I was going to speak on this one today, so first thing I went and read the verse. So if you take this verse out of the context, this looks like, wow, Mahabharata is a wonderful work. It is a great work. So Narada Muni is saying, you did a great job to Vyasadeva. That's what it sounds like, right? Of course, it's a wonderful work, but it's kind of complimenting the wonderful work, but it's also at the same time criticizing. He's criticizing, kind of, okay, so you did the great, wonderful work, but why are you still despondent, right? So it's like, work is good, but you are not still satisfied. So it's kind of both. So first, I thought we should understand the context, and then we should discuss further. So that'll make more sense instead of just taking this verse out of the context and try to glorify Mahabharata. Because when I read this one, oh my gosh, I have to explain the glories of Mahabharata in this verse, because Narada Muni himself saying it's a wonderful work. So I have to explain Mahabharata. But I'm not well versed in Mahabharata at all. So when I started preparing, I thought maybe let's look in the whole picture, whole context, and then try to have some discussion, which will be more meaningful. So that's what I did. So that's what we are going to do next 30 minutes. Thank you, Prabhu, for the answers. So here, this is the Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary translation on this verse. He's also saying, you cannot say that the source of your dissatisfaction is lack of spiritual knowledge because you wrote Mahabharata. So that's the small purport by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So let's discuss the context here. So what is the context? Why this verse is coming? So this is going to be a little 5 minutes at least to the review. So we are in 5th chapter. So we have completed first 4 chapters of Bhagavatam. The first chapter, that's the beginning of Kali Yuga, all the sages assembled in Naimisharanya, doing the 1000 years of sacrifice, yajna, for the welfare of the Kali Yuga people. And they have Shaunaka Rishi as their leader, and Sutta Goswami is also in the assembly. And Sutta Goswami heard Bhagavatam from Sukadev Goswami when he was speaking to Parikshit Maharaj. So now the sages and Shaunaka Rishi is inquiring from Sutta Goswami. So the first chapter is the questions asked by the sages, the main 6 questions they're asking. The second and third chapter is the answer to those questions. So the first question is, what is the ultimate good for everybody? So that's to develop love of God through bhakti. And then what is the essence of all the scriptures? Devotional service. I want to come back to this because essence of all scriptures is devotional service. And the third question they ask is, what is the purpose of Krishna appearing as the, in the womb of Devaki? And the answer is to reclaim the people in mode of goodness. So that's the answer. And then they ask about Purusha avatars, the 3 Vishnus, Mahavishnu, Garbhadakshay Vishnu, Shirodakshay Vishnu. So Sutta Goswami explained those 3 Vishnus. And then they ask about Leela avatar. Please tell us about the Leela avatars. So the avatars are unlimited, but Sutta Goswami explained 22 Leela avatars in answer to that question. And then finally he says, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the source of all incarnation. And then sorry, I'm keep moving this here and there. The final question is, where did religion take shelter after Krishna left, after Krishna's disappearance? And the answer to that, it was Srimad Bhagavatam. So that ends the 3rd chapter. So when they heard the word Srimad Bhagavatam, and that's what the religion took shelter of after Krishna left, then they they want to know more about, want to hear the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the 4th chapter begins with Shaunaka Rishi asking question, the leader. He glorifies Sutta Goswami first, and then he asks further questions. He asked 3 questions. First, they want to know the history of Bhagavatam, where, when, how, it was compiled by Vyasadeva. How did he get the inspiration from? So because the question was, Dharma took shelter in Bhagavatam, so they want to know about Bhagavatam history. So they're asking that question. And then they want to know the Sukadev Goswami, because he spoke the Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. So they want to know, how did he get to, Hastinapur? And how did the people in Hastinapur recognize Sukadev Goswami? So tell us about him. And the third question they ask is, we want to know about Parikshit Maharaj's life and activities. And, why did he, renounce the kingdom? Those questions, they want to know about Parikshit Maharaj. So the book, they want to know about the Bhagavatam. They want to know about the speaker, Sukadev Goswami. They want to know about the hearer, which is Parikshit Maharaj. So these 3 questions, the answer to these 3 questions is in the rest of the canto, like first canto. First canto has 19 chapters. So starting from 4th chapter until 19th chapter, Sutta Goswami is going to explain, give answers to all these 3 questions. The second chapter, actual Bhagavatam starts. So the first question is history of Bhagavatam, how it was compiled. The answer to that itself take 3 chapters, chapter 4, 5, 6. So today, so let's go to the next one. So in the 4th chapter, after Shaunaka Rishi asked this question, then Sutta Goswami start narrating about, first he starts about Vyasadeva and how the history, the Bhagavatam, came into existence, or he compiled, I mean. So he starts speaking about Vyasadeva dividing the Vedas. So in the beginning, Brahma spoke the Vedas. He's from his 4 mouths, and it was all shuffled together. It's like a precious stones. different colors, because it's all varieties, all categories are shuffled together. So Vyasadeva was, he was able to envision, he was Trikalajna, he was able to see the past, present, and future. He was seeing the anomalies of Kali Yuga, how people are going to be dull-minded, dull intelligence, less memory, short duration of life, and all that anomalies. So he wanted, out of compassion, he wanted to help the humanity. And how we can do that? Because people get guidance from the Vedas. So he wanted to divide the Veda and make it simplified so people can make use of it and push themselves in the path of self-realization, God realization. So what he did was, there was one Veda. He divided the Vedas into 4. So we all know the names, the Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva Vedas. So he just, the shuffled ones, he just separated them based on different categories. And after that, he gave those Vedas, entrusted those Vedas to his disciple. Each Veda is to different disciples, and they divided that like subdivisions kind of thing. And then they get that messages to the population of humanity. And then after that, he compiled Vedanta Sutra. Sutra means code, Vedanta means summary of knowledge. So all the Vedas, he put it in a code format, Vedanta Sutra. Then he also wrote Puranas. After Puranas, he was out of more compassion. Like after he wrote Puranas, he entrusted to Ramaharshana. Then he was thinking about, okay, people of less intelligent, by nature, the Shudras, the Divija Bandhu, the friends of Brahmanas, and then the twice born, and then the women category, they are naturally less intelligent. So I want to give them something. So he wrote, finally he wrote Mahabharata. So after he writes that, he was still feeling despondent in his heart. He was not satisfied. He was not feeling that bliss, the connection, or the satisfaction, or happiness was not there in the heart. He was missing. It's like a vacuum feeling he was feeling. So he started contemplating. He was thinking, okay, what did they make mistake? My efforts are so pure. I worshipped gurus and Vedas. I conducted sacrifices. I followed all the regulatory vows, everything I did. And I wrote the literature. Why am I feeling like this? So when he's feeling like that, when he was contemplating like that, he himself came to an answer. By the end of 4th chapter, the last verse says, I'll go back. Yeah. So by the end of 4th chapter, he's feeling already, he was very dissatisfied. He knew that maybe I did not glorify or point out or exclusively or vividly, I didn't explain the devotional service, the bhakti of, bhakti. So that's what maybe I'm feeling this way. So that ends the 4th chapter. So he already knew that what was the reason for his despondency or dissatisfaction by then. And then at that time, the chapter 5th begin, Narada Muni comes there. So why Narada Muni is coming? But basically, Vyasadeva need approval or confirmation or blessings, mercy of Narada Muni to start writing Bhagavatam. So that's what, he already know the answer. When he was contemplating, Narada Muni comes. And then he receives Narada Muni nicely, verse number 1. And verse number 2, we discussed last week, which was, Narada Muni is inquiring. Basically, in a way, he's kind of critiquing the work of Vyasadeva, all the work he did. He said, are you satisfied? Are you satisfied by identifying yourself with the body and mind? That's the first question he asked. And the second question is this one. Okay, so you're well-versed in knowledge, you fully inquired, and then you did a great work of Mahabharata. Okay, so that's what we are reading this. So there are a few more verses. He will inquire from Vyasadeva. Finally, he gives the answer. It's like you go to a physician or doctor with some issue. They don't jump into treatment first. First, they inquire, okay, what are your symptoms? What did you do? And all that. They inquire from the patient, and then they'll make the diagnosis. Okay, this is your problem. And then they give you the treatment. Similarly, now Narada Muni is first inquiring. And then he's going to make a diagnosis. What is your problem? Why are you feeling this despondent? Why are you not satisfied? And then he's going to give a cure. So, but the last work was Mahabharata, right? So why was Mahabharata was not sufficient to make Vyasadeva satisfied? Because it's a great work. So I did hear some lectures on Mahabharata to just say what is what is in Mahabharata, because Mahabharata is a great, massive itihas, epic that everybody take aspiration from, means for millions of people, so much wisdom. So we'll talk about few about Mahabharata, one slide. So it's a itihas. As I said, it is a massive, a big literature, 110,000 verses. Bhagavatam has only 18,000. This has 110,000 verses. And it is also called fifth Veda. And after the four Vedas, the Puranas and Mahabharata is called fifth Veda. And the meaning of Mahabharata is, Maha means great, Bharata means, Bha means Bhaskara, which is sun, that gives light. And Ratha means that which we are absorbed in. So Bharata means the part of the world that are absorbed in the light of spiritual knowledge, that is Greater India. So the part of the world that absorbed in the light of spiritual knowledge is Mahabharata. And it has 18 parvas. So the parvas are big section, and each parvas has so many chapters. So the one verse, it's Adi Parva. In this verse itself, the Mahabharata itself glorifies Mahabharata. So it says, in the realm of Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, which is Dharma means religion, Artha is economic development, Kama is sense gratification, Moksha is liberation. In that fourth thing, whatever is found in epic, this epic, which is Mahabharata, may be found elsewhere. Whatever you read in Mahabharata, you can find it somewhere else also. But whatever is not found here, you cannot find it anywhere else. So that means it's inclusive of everything. But we are going to come to this later, because what is this glorifying? Those four things. And how it is inferior to bhakti, right? So we'll come to that at the end. Then we'll move on to the next slide. So after writing all the Vedas, Puranas, Itihas, and Vedanta Sutra, still Vyasadeva was feeling dissatisfied, despondent, very incomplete, not pacified. So now Narada Muni is making the assessment and going to make a diagnosis. So what went wrong in Mahabharata? Or is it issue with the Mahabharata or people in Kali Yuga? So what happened was, the Mahabharata talks about all the transcendental subjects. Because in Mahabharata also, Krishna is there, Krishna's devotees are there, Bhishma Dev, Pandavas, Draupadi, Kunti Devi, everybody's there. So it talks about transcendental subject matters and also material subjects. But the Bhagavad Gita comes in Mahabharata. It's a part of Mahabharata. So the whole idea of Mahabharata is to end with the ultimate instruction, which is Krishna's instruction. We all know 1866, Sarva Dharman Parityajya, Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. So, you have to give up all the other engagements, just to solely surrender unto me. That's the ultimate instruction that has to be taken from Mahabharata. But people with the materialistic tendency, they're attracted to other aspects of Mahabharata, politics, economics, other activities, whatever mentioned in Mahabharata, but they are not very much interested in the ultimate instruction, which is Bhagavad. Like even when, even just watching the Mahabharata serial, they'll watch the whole thing. I'm not saying like in a negative way, but people sometimes they tend to watch the whole episodes. When the Bhagavad episode come, Bhagavad Gita episode come, they'll say, oh, it's Krishna speaking to Arjuna, and it's just a long, just speaking, and just they skip it. Reading also, they take other subject matter more, but then they don't take the ultimate instructions, what they should be doing. They miss that. So Narada is saying, you should not have a compromising spirit, like you cannot have that, because people have to realize what is, their relationship with God, and they have to establish the lost relationship. And if you give them the other information, you're compromising their spirit. And you should have not done that. You should have not done that. And he's condemning that writing of Vyasadeva. And then Narada Muni's criticism is very, like he's using a heavy word here. In the 15th verse, he'll say, Jugipsitam. Jugipsitam means horrible work. You have done a horrible work, despicable, and it's verily condemned. Because he's saying, in Kali Yuga, people are naturally inclined to enjoy. material thing, because sense gratification is the basis for our material existence. And that's the way we are just, the material bondage keep coming back, birth and death. But if you give them some, give way, they're going to, in the name of religion, they're going to hold on to that. And that's what you have done, because they think, okay, Vyasadeva said this will do it, right? In the name of religion, you have done this job, it's verily condemned. But then some may ask, okay, did Vyasadeva not glorify Krishna in any other place? Yes, he did. In our Puranas, glorification is there. In Mahabharata also, even though Krishna is not a main role, but he plays a significant role in Mahabharata, the speaking of Bhagavad Gita. So Vyasadeva has given, but he compromised in a little way. And he's also given other choices for people. So he's saying, Narada is saying, Juhipsitam, it's verily condemned. And then more criticism here. He's saying, I don't remember the verse. This is in the same chapter, I think a couple of verses later. He's saying, Vayasam Tirtham. Tirtham is pilgrimage, Vayasam means cross. So any literature or any words which glorify Krishna's, his name, form, glories, and leelas, Nama, Rupa, Leela, those things, it just immediately sanctify the whole place, the whole universe, any literature or any words. And that's what the pure devotees are attracted to. But those words which did not glorify, the pure devotees or saintly people consider them as a pilgrimage for the crows. So where do the crows go? Filthy place, right? So Narada Muni is saying, it's basically your words are your, like a bias, not your words. He's saying, whatever words which did not glorify the Lord, the pure devotees consider them as Vayasam Tirtham, place of pilgrimage for the crow. So that's what he's saying. So what is missing then? He wrote so many things, he spent so much time, so many Vedas and everything. So what is missing? What went wrong? So the problem is, Vyasadeva know all the different, he's the author of all the Vedas, and he compiled everything, edited everything. So he knows the different ways of transcendental realization, like how to get to. So he knows too many paths, too many options, and he put them in the writing. And then he also gave so many demigod worship. So what will people do when they have, he gave too many ways, like, fruitive activities. You can do fruitive activities and get yourself elevated, speculative knowledge, mystic power, devotional service. So he mixed everything. He gave everything. And then he also gave demigod worship. In Puranas, there is recommendation for different demigod worship. So people in general, what will they do? They'll get puzzled. Okay, so they'll get puzzled. How do I fix my mind on the service of the Lord? And then they will also be disturbed. Okay, which path is right path to get self-realization? Because when you give everything, like it's like a child, you give them so many options to pick, they get puzzled. For them, it will be very difficult to pick one, irrespective of games or toys or whatever. Too many options, they get puzzled and they'll be disturbed and they don't know what to pick. So that's what that's what Vyasadeva's work was. That's what Narada Muni's conclusion is here when he's doing the assessment of Vyasadeva. So Prabhupada write here very nicely, the purpose of Veda for us to go, meant for going back to Godhead, and then a human form of life is the, important, like very, it gives a chance to get out of this material world and establish our lost relationship with God. So Prabhupada's heavy words here are, no one should given a chance for self-enjoyment. One should never be encouraged. I'm sorry, let me read that exactly. Prabhupada says, one should never be encouraged in making a plan for sense enjoyment in the name of religious functions, because it's very misleading, misguiding them. So we should not be given, because it's a rare choice. Imagine 8.4 million species of life. We have gone through millions of lifetime, different planets, different universe. We have taken birth in everywhere and every species. Sorry, I went to the next one. Oh. So Prabhupada is saying that we got the rare opportunity, the human form of life. We cannot, miss this. So we have to make use of Vedas. We have to go back to Godhead, but no one should be encouraged to make plan for sense enjoyment in the name of religion. So Prabhupada is saying Srila Vyasadeva is the authority in Vedic explanation in the Mahabharata and etc. And his encouragement in sense enjoyment in some form or other is a great barrier for spiritual advancement. Then you can ask, how is it Mahabharata is explaining about sense enjoyment? I'm going to have that at the last slide, because I'm going to connect the first slide about how Mahabharata is given the dharma, artha, kama, moksha fully, but how it's inferior. Okay, so Prabhupada is saying no sense, and we should not encourage people to have a plan for sense enjoyment. That's what Mahabharata did. So it's like the person with diabetes. So they go to a doctor, and the doctor is going to be very strict in the diet when they're explaining, you cannot have this, you cannot have that. Because if you say, okay, once in a while you can eat this, once in a while, it's a compromising, and it's not going to work. It won't work for many people. If you give them some leeway, like, okay, once in a while, once a week. So I want to give an example of my patients that I treat, heart patients, the disease called heart failure. So they should not be eating salt because it makes the problem worse. And but they will ask me, the one question they'll ask me every time when they come, can I have salt occasionally? So then I ask them to explain, what do you mean by occasional? Because occasional is different for everybody. Like occasional for one person, it's once a week. One person, it's once a month. One person is once in 3 months. So when they say, can I have occasionally? So if you give them some way like this, it's going to get worse. So Prabhupada is saying we should never encourage them to make a plan for sense enjoyment. Prabhupada gives the example of the physician being very strict with the diet in the purport. So Sridhar Swami says, rituals without devotion is useless. And Srila Jiva Goswami says that spiritual knowledge, which is jnana, is less valuable than devotion to the Lord. Then what to speak of karma? So it's more even lesser. So now Narada Muni is going to make the diagnosis. So he said, you did a great work, you're still despondent. And then he says all that. And then he says, so what you did do was wrong. Although great sage, you have very broadly described the 4 principles beginning with the religious performance. You have not described the glories of Supreme Personality, Vasudeva. What is that 4 principles beginning with the religious performance is the dharma. So dharma, so people do dharma, the religion, to get what? Artha, which is the economical gain. And then with the artha, what they do? Kama, sense gratification, And then what happens? So they did the dharma, artha, and then kama, and then they get frustrated. One point they get frustrated, baffled. That's what Prabhupada used the word baffled. And then they want to get moksha. And what kind of moksha they will get? They want to get one with the Supreme, Saijamukti, impersonal liberation. So that's what you have broadly described. But one can ask, is it not good? It is basically different categories of sense gratification. That's a category it's in. It's not in a transcendental platform. Those 4 things are still considered. They are goals of life, purusharthas, but they are lesser than bhakti, the devotional service. Because the devotional service is parama purushartha. The love of Godhead is a parama purushartha. So the diagnosis is you didn't glorify the devotional service to Vasudeva, the glories of Vasudeva. That's what you're feeling because you have explained all the other different categories of sense gratification. So that's a diagnosis Vyasadeva got. So, and then Prabhupada writes in one of the purport. So when somebody writes all the books and everything, and they are not even satisfied in their heart. So what to speak of a reader? Right? Because Vyasadeva is a compiler of Vedanta Sutra and Puranas and everything, but he's still troubled in his heart. He was not feeling that bliss. So there is something missing. So the transcendental bliss. So if he himself not feeling that, the readers who are going to read the book, how are they going to feel that transcendental bliss? So then Prabhupada says, herein arise the necessity of explaining the Vedanta Sutra in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam by the self-same author. Because he went through all the work, he knows the defect now, what missing and what went wrong. The same person has to write the explaining the Vedanta Sutra, but glorifying the Lord, glorifying the bhakti, glorifying the devotional service in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. That is the cure for the problem. So the treatment, now Narada Muni is giving the treatment. Narada recommended to Vyasadeva that Vyasadeva should now eagerly and repeatedly describe the path of devotional service. This would cure him from gross despondency. So that's a treatment Narada Muni is saying. So question again here. If all the literary accomplishments of so he's saying, so write Srimad Bhagavatam now. So is all the literature that Vyasadeva compiled is worthless? Anybody wants to answer this?
No, Mataji. I think there are different, I think like Ramacharya Prabhu answered last week, your question. There are different grades of people, people in the mode of passion, people in the mode of goodness, people in the mode of ignorance, and they cannot start, tasting Srimad Bhagavatam right away if you give them that. So they have to go through this process, probably, a different ladder in order to achieve the same end goal.
Yes. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Anybody wants to answer anything different than what Venumadhuri Prabhu said now? Okay. So the answer is what Venumadhuri Prabhu is perfectly right. But is it worthless? The answer is, I'm going to say yes and no. If you in the perspective of Bhagavatam, it's worthless. If you take it from the perspective of Bhagavatam, the other literatures are worthless. But in even Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, somebody's, going in some path, fruitive activity. So you should not distract them. You should help them. You should not distract them. So I forget the word. So similarly, like Venumadhuri Prabhu said, there are different people in different modes and they are not in that level. So they need some guidance too. We cannot leave them alone. That's right. But in the perspective of Bhagavatam, other literatures are worthless. I heard this analogy from one of the lectures that, so if I'm going to travel to New York, I will book the flight ticket. It may cost like $250 or $320 or $350. Different flight, different timings will have different price. But I would like to go for the cheap one, right? So based on my level, I would like to go for a cheap one. So I will adjust my schedule, the timings and the flight. Maybe I will go for the least one, like $280 or whatever least one. I'll adjust anything to get that. But for a millionaire, multimillionaire, they don't care. They travel in the first class. They don't care about how much the ticket price is. All they care about is, their efficient use of time and, when they get there and then the comfortable flight and all that. So for them, they don't care, right? So like, for example, when I go to grocery shopping, if some store has the same thing in a lesser price, I will drive there to get that. But then for people with a lot of money, they don't care. They just want to go and get it done. So the same way, Bhagavatam is like that. The other things in front of Bhagavatam, it's the other literatures are worthless and it's waste. But, it is, Vyasadeva compiled for other people, it's okay. But if you take it in perspective of Bhagavatam, those other literatures are, we don't need it. That's what it means. So, so we'll go to the next one. So why Vyasadeva was not feeling despondent? Because the soul was not feeling that connection, because we lost the connection and we need to reconnect. That Krishna Katha should be prominent in the literature if the soul needs to be satisfied. If the soul is to be satisfied, Krishna Katha should be very prominent. This is a kind of summary slide I have connecting the discussion today. Vyasadeva, when he started compiling Bhagavatam, this is the second verse. He's inviting everybody. So he's the author, he's the literary incarnation of Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he himself recommending everybody, he's inviting everybody, let's read Bhagavatam. So the reasons given by the author itself, like, so if somebody has done so much work and then they did the final work and they're saying this final work is perfect, we believe them, right? It's a source, right source. So this verse is a very beautiful verse. I'll try to recite this. Dharma prochida kaitavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam Vedyam vatsavamatra vastu shivadam tapatrayomulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamunikrite Kimva Paraishwaraha Sadyo Hirdiyavarutyate Kritibi Shushrushubistatchanat. So the first thing is completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. So what is that materially motivated religion? Is dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Because those are materially motivated. It's like a different categories of sense gratification, right? So this Bhagavatam is completely rejecting all those religious activities or the literatures. And the Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth. So what is that highest truth? Because in the Vedas, it says, do fruitive activities, you'll get to the higher planets. Do demigod worship, you'll get to the planets of demigod. Or there's a section for realizing the impersonal feature of the Lord. Those are all inferior things. These are different categories in the Vedas, but it is all inferior because impersonal Brahman realization is inferior than Paramatma feature. We know that it's not perfect. And the Paramatma, understanding the Paramatma feature is also imperfect and it's not complete compared to understanding the Supreme Lord in the personal feature form, right? So Bhagavatam explains the Supreme Lord in his personal feature. And the worship of Supreme Personality of Godhead is this highest truth. And that's what Bhagavatam explained. There is in the Vedas, there is Jnana Kanda, Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, Upasana Kanda. There's different things. Those are all inferior to understanding the personal feature of Bhagavan or absolute truth. And that's described in Bhagavad Purana, which is the highest truth. And who can understand this? Those devotees who are fully pure in heart. And this understanding this highest truth, how is going to help us? The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. So when we understand this, the monism, the dualism, all that go away, then we understand, okay, Krishna, and we are Krishna's eternal servant. And when we understand that, our illusion is gone. And it is not for some sectarian people, it's for the welfare of all. So that's Bhagavatam. And what it does is, when we understand we are not the master of this material world, we are the servant, and then that conception and the consciousness uproot all the threefold miseries. Miseries comes from our body and mind, miseries come from other living beings, miseries come from other natural calamities. So when we understand that what is the position of God and what is our position, the threefold miseries will be uprooted just like that. And who wrote this? That this beautiful Bhagavatam is compiled by great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity. So in his maturity means in the mature stage of his spiritual life, he wrote this. And then it says, is sufficient in itself for God realization. Bhagavatam is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scriptures? Oh, sorry, I went back. So what is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. So we have to, the one qualification we need is the eagerness, the anxious to hear. And in what spirit? Attentively and submissively hear the message of Bhagavatam, not in a challenging attitude. So when we do that, then the Supreme Lord will be established in our heart. That's a glory of Bhagavatam. And there's one more verse. There's many verses glorifying the Bhagavatam. This one, the verse says that simply by hearing the oral, giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, what happens? The feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna is just sprouts up when we just hear Bhagavatam. And it is just, well, the material lamentation and illusion and the fearfulness all will be extinguished just hearing Bhagavatam. So the final slide I have is glorifying our Prabhupada. So we have this Bhagavatam. We know Prabhupada, at the age of 70, crossed the ocean, went through health difficulties. He was in New York in the winter alone. Even his things were robbed. So many difficulties he went through. But one thing that he didn't, give up throughout his life was writing Srimad Bhagavatam commentary for us. I know other acharyas who wrote commentary may went through all these difficulties too, but at least we know, we have what Prabhupada went through, right? Even after establishing ISKCON, training the disciples, traveling all over the world, writing replies to his disciples, establishing temples, training them in the management. There's so many things Prabhupada was doing, but the one thing that he was keep doing was writing Srimad Bhagavatam. Just sleepless nights, tirelessly, until his end, he was writing Srimad Bhagavatam. And we have that readily available. So all we have to give is oral reception. We can really make use of this. We have, this is for myself also I'm speaking, we should not end our day without touching Srimad Bhagavatam. At least one verse a day, 1 hour a day, 2 hours a day, whatever we can. So we have evening recitation, 4 days a week. We have Saturday morning discussion, Sunday evening discussion. So all we have to give is the oral reception, and we cannot pay back what Prabhupada has given us, right? So we just have to make use of that. With that, I will end here. Thank you so much for joining on a Saturday morning to hear again Bhagavatam. Hopefully I was able to say something. But again, whatever I said is from reading from Prabhupada's books, hearing from Prabhupada, my Guru Maharaj. And I want to also thank the speaker, the lectures I heard and the books I read. One of my main source for this preparation is Burijanas Prabhu's Unveiling Lotus Feet, that book. And then I heard lecture from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu's Mahabharata. And then also a lecture by Radhika Ramanan Prabhu. And then some other, the writings of Prabhupada's. So again, I would like to thank Ramacharya Prabhu for giving me this opportunity. If I said something wrong, I didn't make sense, kindly forgive me and correct me. And we have 10 minutes, we can have discussion if there is any. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji, for taking time to give such a nice class. Learning has a multi-step process, and that's how we learn. And one of the way we can learn is that we stay engaged, whatever capacity we can, and then slowly and slowly we'll have the right mood and right learning about our Shastra also. So from last 3 years, we have been doing it. And you have been one of the devotee who has consistently joined the program in the morning and gave the class as needed. So really appreciate your support. Let's have some QA, and please don't leave. I have one request that I would like to make. So let's see if anybody has any questions, and then at the end I'll make some requests to all of you. Thank you, Mataji. Very nice. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji, for the very nice summary this morning. It was when I read that verse last week, I was thinking, this is probably going to delve into Mahabharata a little bit and understanding Mahabharata, like you mentioned. But you went to the root of the the verse, and it's very beautifully explained why Narada Muni is approaching it that way, and what is the thing that is missing in Mahabharata, even though it is wonderful. Very nicely explained, Mataji. Thank you very much. Nice effort and nice summary.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. When I read the verse first time, I felt the same way. Oh my God, I have to glorify Mahabharata. So I have to know what's in Mahabharata and how, but it is a great literature. But instead of glorifying that, it's a Bhagavatam discussion class. So I went into the mood of Narada Muni, the Vyasadev and his contribution, and then glory of Bhagavatam. So that's what I took it. I think every speaker's, if this verse is given to someone else, they may be speaking in a different way. I think it just different people take it differently, but any approach is okay, I believe. Thank you.
Yeah, this was beautiful. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other discussion?
Yeah, Mataji, this is Lal Gopal Das. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
You just put so much of your time in beautifully sequencing without leaving us any question to ask. So you thoroughly thought what questions may arise. And I think you put those things in your presentation. So we are speechless to ask any questions. So thank you for spending your time on enlightening us with in this morning. One thing I want to share is on the statement that you made. As you mentioned that compared to Srimad Bhagavatam, everything else is useless. You emphasized that quite few times, and I also value Srimad Bhagavatam Amalam Puranam, which is the only literature which can save us to develop bhakti towards Krishna, because it's all about Krishna and Krishna's devotees. No other literature really speaks in detail like what Srimad Bhagavatam has provided us by the compassionate Vyasadev, by the mercy of the Guru Parampara and Srila Prabhupada. Otherwise, I don't think we'll ever have any clue about Srimad Bhagavatam. It is just grace of Prabhupada. He opened that secret door to all of us to enter into Srimad Bhagavatam. What I want to say, had my opinion, not my opinion, my understanding. I can't give my opinion. My understanding that Srimad Bhagavatam cannot stand by itself. That's the first point. Any literature, any itihasas and puranas, kavyas, anything for that matter, are there as a supplementary to support Vedas. Vedas are the mother. Mother is a mother. And anything else that after that is written, composed, are just to support the Vedas. Therefore, there is a beautiful sloka which says, Itihasa Puranabhyam Vedam Saupa Brahmaye Bibetalpa Shrute Devata Mayam Pratirashyati. That means the Vedas are afraid. The Vedas, personification of Vedas, are really shivering with fright if they are being touched directly without studying itihasas and puranas. Without studying itihasas, that is Mahabharata and Ramayana, Puranas, the Satvika Puranas especially, if one's directly go to Vedas, the Vedas are afraid how this guy will understand me without going through itihasas and Puranas. So the idea is to understand Vedas. But for us, Kali Yuga people, we can't approach Vedas. Therefore, the merciful Vedas incarnated into the itihasas and Puranas. And the commentary of, it is said, as you already mentioned, the Srimad Bhagavatam is nothing but a commentary on Vedanta Sutra. Now, what is Vedanta Sutra? Vedanta Sutra is a condensed version. Sutram means a capsule, like a capsules, a smaller version of what is there in Vedanta. And what is Vedanta? They are Upanishad. And what is Upanishad? It is the essence of all the Vedas. When you sequence this out, so Srimad Bhagavatam is a commentary on Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra is nothing but the condensed version of Upanishad. Upanishad is another condensed main essence of the entire Vedas. Therefore, everything leads back as to Vedas. And Krishna himself says that, what does he say? Shruti smriti mamai agya yastam ullangya vartate. Agya cheti mama drohi. Please listen to this word. Acha chedi mama drohi mama bhaktopi na Vaishnava. He says, this is in Mahabharata. He says that anyone who does not follow my instructions that's given in Shruti plus Smriti. What is that? Shruti and Smriti, Vedas, and then the rest of the literatures, including Itihasas and Puranas. Anyone who does not accept and follow my instruction given in Vedas and other literatures, they are Mama Drohi. And I don't think we have to explain what Drohi means. Betrayers. And they are not considered to be Vaishnavas. They are not my Bhaktas. Therefore, the point here is I just want to make sure they are not useless. But I understand your point of where you're coming from, right? But one should be careful to say a word, use a word heavily against the Vedas and other things as useless, because Bhagavatam is meant to support Vedas. Bhagavatam cannot stand by itself. Please understand, I am also in the same sampradaya. I believe I have a complete faith in Bhagavatam, but destroy all other literature, only have Bhagavatam. It's not going to be accepted even by Krishna, because he says it has to go in hand. Bhagavatam is to support Vedas, Vedantas, Itihasas. Everything is there to support the Vedas. Therefore, everything has an important role in human society. So I just want to make sure that when we speak and say certain things, let's be, because there are various audience also. We just have to be careful how we present. Otherwise, people may start thinking that ISKCON people or the preachers of ISKCON, they deny the Vedas and other things. They only stick on to Srimad Bhagavatam. That is not the case. That's not at all the case. So, but wonderful presentation. I just thought I'd just give my small feedback on that particular term, but I felt a little heavy on present to say useless, because we have to be very careful. Otherwise, it becomes an offense to the literature, scriptures, which is also Bhagavat Apacharam. Apacharam means it's an offense to the God when he offend his instructions. And that's what he said in that sloka. Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for explaining very nicely, Prabhu, how Bhagavatam is connected to all the Vedas and it's supporting the Vedas. So yes, that word I used was kind of a little heavy. Basically, when we have Bhagavatam, the other Vedas, we don't have to read. Bhagavatam in itself sufficient just for reading, but it's not worthless. It is worth. So thank you, Prabhu, for
thank you for accepting and letting me.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Very good explanation. And you made very clear. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also defines the bhakti, Pradhan Bhuta Bhakti, Guna Bhuta Bhakti, and Kevalya Bhakti. And there is literature in each category of bhakti. So point that you made is awesome. That was my understanding also, that contribution of Vyasdev has purpose. And sometimes devotees, when they are giving classes, they might be trying to establish a certain context, certain concept, such as if you are talking about Kevalya Bhakti. If you talk about Kevalya Bhakti, then you have to say that Amlam Puranam is the Shastra which you refer to. So again, depends what's the concept, theme that you are trying to establish with the respect of everything that exists around. So I would like to thank you, all of you. And I have one request to make. I'm in the temple right now. And on Saturdays, I have some services. I would like to come and do some of the services. That gives me, some good kind of mood. And this Bhagavatam class is awesome. But my request is that if we do same type of discussion in front of Krishna Balram, then the devotees who are living in the temple, they can be also benefited. We have Cornel Bond Prabhu who comes, Jesse Prabhu comes, Sakri Prabhu will come, then Baldev Prabhu is here. All the devotees, they will be part of the discussion. Right now, all of them are missing. So if we can somehow or other find and this is totally your kind of decision space, how you would like to do. But if you can somehow or other find a means, and I'm open to hear any suggestions that you have, we can basically start doing the same class. The first thing we have to do is that for sure change the time to match the 7:45 that class time is for our temple program. That's one thing for sure. So that part, I think if you all agree, then we can do that. So let me try to take it point-wise, slowly. Are you all okay?